Day 6. What now? Hi and welcome to another episode. The one we've got here is the PiHut Advent Calendar Let It Glow. We're on day 6, so let's pull the box. What have we got? What have we got? What have we got? More wires, it seems. Can I get in a plastic bag quicker today? Can I do it? No, is the answer. There we go. What have we got? Big LED with lots of legs on it, which probably means it's multicoloured. And there's another one. There's some big LEDs there. And some more male-to-male jumper wire type things. So, I need to stop saying so all the time, but let's get on with it. Let's go to the website and bring this little thing across. Let's not forget, unplug it first, just in case. Don't want to zap electricity around the wrong places. And what have we got? We have... It's day 6. Today is another blinky day. And it's time to go multicolour with addressable RGB LEDs. Aha, there we go, addressable LEDs. We need to pay special attention to wiring these up, as they have 4 different size legs and the way we code them is different. But it's day 6 and you're totally ready for this. Let's get started. Right, warning. So it's saying some of today's activities contain fast flashing lights which may not be suitable for those with photosensitive epilepsy. So sadly, if you do suffer from that, I'm going to have to ask you to be either stop watching or to be very, very careful, as in, watch it with someone around you just in case, because obviously the way that we're doing it, tiny little down at the bottom here, but if you're doing it in person, you should be very careful. And obviously I don't want people to end up having a horrible Christmas because it's been kicked off by some flashing lights. So I don't know enough about it to say that the video isn't going to cause it. But please be very, very careful either way for the video or for the LEDs when you're playing around with this yourself. It might be one that you want to give a skip. But for everybody else who believes that they're fine with it, let's carry on. So 2 10mm RGB adjustable LEDs and 6 male-to-male jumper wires. That's what we have. Yep. Today's activities, we're going to learn how to use addressable RGB LEDs, how to wire them up, code them and show different colours. First, let's talk a bit more about how special LEDs these are. What are adjustable RGBs? Basically, the red, green and blue, and we can do a bit of in between, so we can get other colours as well. With lots of these LEDs, or in other formats such as very strong strips, you would usually have to worry about external power, resistors and other technicalities. However, running just a couple of these means we don't need to worry about these distractions. We will be powering them from a different pin. No wonder I was having difficulty saying it. We will be powering them from a different pin this time. The VBus pin, physical pin 40, as this will provide a full 5 volts these LEDs need rather than 3.3 volt pin that we're using for the standard LEDs. Constructing the circuit. Clear the board. We're going to start afresh today without any of the components or wires in the way, as this will be a day focused purely on learning how to control RGB LEDs. We're going to be using some jumper wires from previous days. Fit 1 LED. Each of your RGB LEDs has 4 legs. You'll notice that the legs are different lengths, which is by design to help us identify which is which. Here's a map to the legs. Okay, so let's try to zoom in. We'll clear the board in a moment when we've learned more about these legs. So I'm going to zoom in. If I can, there we go. Zooming. Oh, actually I'm going to move the board out of the way so it will be easier to see the pins, because the white background's not helping. Right. So the shortest of the We have two legs that are the same length on either side, and then a longer one here. So that's the one that we need to make. So that's a D out, and then next to that's ground, and then D in. So basically 5 volts, data out, ground, data in. So we'll put that down for a moment and zoom back out yet again. And it told us we need to clean the board, but I want to make sure what we're doing. I'm assuming we're taking off everything off the top board, but what we're doing for the rest of them. So we figured out which is which. Just a bit of a zoom down. Yep. Basically, the Pico staying on the bottom board, and we're playing around with the top board for the different pins of the thing. So let's pull some wires then. Obviously making sure the USB is unplugged. So we'll have a little collection of wires just over here. I'm just out of shot, but surprised we have to pull, we're getting more wires when we've already got a load of wires. But it depends on what it's going to have us do. Little collection. I'll zoom out even more just so you can see them. There we go. Bunch of wires. They're definitely a rat nest, isn't there? Careful with the dip switch. We don't want to break the legs on that. Put that there. A little strip of LEDs. Put them there. And the, what was that called? Network resistor. That was it, wasn't it? Put that there. So let's start off with a clean board. So leg 1 is 5 volts. So we figured that the leg 2 is the longest one. So we need to put basically leg 4 is going to go in A2 on the top board. Maybe a little bit of a zoom in again. Alright, so let's make sure this all lines up. I have to fan the legs out a little bit so that they go into the different parts. I'll be careful though, we don't want to break the legs. There we go. So as I say, pin 4 is in A2 of the top board. That's that first one done. Don't want to force them too much, and it says that it can be a little bit tricky because the legs are different lengths. Just take your time and don't force any too much. What I've done is fan the legs out a little bit, and then I'm going as far in as leg number 2 is allowing me for the length of it. That's what I'm doing. So now we need to create some power rails. So it says before we wire the LEDs, we're going to create a new power rail for 5 volts from the V bus, as we only have one of these V plus pins on the Pico. We're going to need 2 of them when we introduce the other LED later. Okay. Right, so again with the funny coloured wires, we've not particularly got one that matches up to everything. I'm going to use a blue, well actually I'll use a grey one. Create a ground rail. So that's on the bottom. Oh no, this is actually on the bottom of the top breadboard that we're using. We want the one all the way across on the right hand side, and then we're going in pin 3 on for the Pico, which is going to be on A3. So that's that wire done. I'm going to find a red wire now, and I'm going to go from, what does it say? Okay, connecting the LED pins. Oh, it doesn't mention. Doesn't mention so well about the power one, because I've sort of skipped that, haven't I? Pin 40. So on the bottom rails of the top board, just above the grey wire that we've done, and we're going to come down to pin 30 of the Pico, which is actually, for us to stick in this in here, we're going to use J1. It's sort of easier doing it that way around, because then you're not on top of each other. But either way, those are the two wires that we need. Moving on to connecting the legs now. We're going to, well, basically, we're going to connect the legs. I'm going to pick up another red wire and work from left to right. So we're going from the bottom of the top breadboard, in that little red blue section. We're going to use a top hole there, just like in a diagram, and that's going to go up to E5. And I'm going to get another grey wire, because we're using that as a substitute as a black ones, aren't we? So, and basically we need to go, oh, we miss a hole, so it's onto E3 now, and then we're going down to the positive side. No, sorry, not positive side, the negative side. Make sure we do that right, and try and straighten the pin up again if it's a bit bent. So diagonal to the last one that we did. So can you see there? Let's move this wire out of the way. It's diagonal from the one that we did just before. I get a blue wire, and we're going from E2 down to, where are we going? A4 on the bottom board. There we go. So if you remember the pins, what we've actually done there is got the electricity in, and we've got this blue one is actually sending data off to the fancy LED. Oh, it's not all in shot. You could have told me, couldn't you? Dear me. Let's zoom out a little bit. Make sure it's all in shot. There we go. Move down again on the instructions. Okay, activity number 1. Signal color test. Basically, we're going to mess around with the RGB now for the red, green, blue, which is how your TV works, by the way, if you don't happen to know it. They actually have them separated in different bits, and they glow at different strengths, and because of that, you end up with different colors. Not forgetting that, you know, it's very, very small on your TV, but here's a massive one. So if we had lots of these and lots of Picos, we could actually build, not the TV tuner, but we could build a display. We'd have to stand really far back, and it'd probably be pretty ugly because it's not all lined up straight, but the idea is basically the same. So the 3 colors can be combined to show a huge range of different colors. Not hue, but huge range of different colors. With RGB, each of these 3 colors can be set to an intensity value between 0 and 255. That's kind of like a fancy bit in computing of those numbers. There'll be a number that you come across a lot, especially 256, because 0 is also counted, as we learned the other day that we start counting at 0. So there's actually 256 different possibilities. As each of the 3 colours has 255 possible different intensity values, because obviously 0 is off. We still should have sort of explained it like that, I believe, because that is the truth. Even though off is not... When you're talking about intensity, having no intensity is still an intensity. It still should be included. But anyway, technically there are... Oh, there's a big number. 16,777,216 possible colour combinations. Although your eyes probably won't notice the differences between a lot of these when they're used with LEDs, which is true. So in a kind of a way, even though that we're playing around with digital, we're doing analog stuff, variances in between little bits. Anyway, RGB and LEDs. How does this relate to our RGB LED? Well, as we mentioned earlier, inside of each of these clever LEDs are 3 smaller LEDs, one red, one green, and one blue. We send the code to LED to set the RGB intensity value of each internal LED, allowing it to mix and show different colours. Cool, huh? Well, I hope so. It's an LED. LED is supposed to be cool. Right, we're using GRB. Whilst RGB is a general term used for the kinds of multicolour LEDs, they can come in a number of formats, and these ones are GRB, so green, red, blue. So yeah, and then basically saying, you might have guessed it already, that means green, red, blue. What does it mean for us? It just means the colour positions are different in our code. For example, red, which is usually 2550,0, basically all red and none of the other colours. We need to swap the first 2 numbers around. Okay. So RGB would be 2550,0, but for us it's going to be GRB, which is going to be 0,255,0. So there's something to try to remember when we're doing it. Our LEDs are also weird. Despite testing samples before ordering thousands of these LEDs for our calendars, our supplier seemed to send us different LEDs that act, well, different. Whilst they work in the circuit, we can make them show the main GRB colours as expected. They don't seem to mix standard colours correctly when we try colour codes that are more than one at the LEDs at a time. We're still scratching our heads over this one. Oh, great. To get around this, we've tested and listed colour codes for you to in the example code below, so you can still get lots of colours to play with without having to worry about anything. Okay, that seems fair enough. So basically we've got cheapo ones. Yeah, I'm saying sarcastically because that's literally what it is. It's maybe not their fault. As we all know, different suppliers can be interesting to deal with. No matter if you're at the low end and you're just trying to get it delivered to your front door, to you're trying to buy absolutely everything they've got in stock and put it on a slow boat. Right. To set the LED up, we will set the pin number of the LED GPIO2 and the number of LEDs connected to this pin. Just one. We can now refer to it using GRB LED in our code. To then send the instructions data to the LED, we're using GRB LED.write, close bracket, open bracket, close bracket. This part is important. Nothing will happen until we write the data. In the example below, we'll use GRB LED.fill. Open bracket or curly bracket? No, open bracket and open bracket 0,0,255 close bracket to set the color. The numbers rounded brackets are for the GRB value. We're using 0,0,255, which is blue at its brightest intensity. Copy the example below over to Thorny, run the code, and then try the following tasks to get the hang of things. Okay, so first things first, let's get the Pico up and running. So double check the wiring just to make sure. Plug the USB in again. As I've said before, I've got this really daft long USB cable. Let's line it up a little bit. We should, I'm just going to lights down a little bit because we should be able to see it anyway, but having the lights duller does seem to help the video capture what's happening. Then we go across to Thonny, press the stop button. It's found the Pico. We're going to cut and paste this code, paste it in. So I'm going to say it yet again. If you have problems with photosensitivity epilepsy, please be very, very careful. It's your decision. I can't slap your wrist hard enough if you've got that condition and you're playing around with this. It's not my problem, it's yours. And I mean that in the politest way. So, let's press run. It should just turn it to blue, which it has done. Believe me, that's the lowest I can get the lights, and it is. You should see the glow from my hands. It's actually blue, not green. But it's a very nice colour, blue. It'd be annoying on a TV set saying, you know, there's the power, but it is actually relatively bright for a LED. So that works. We know the blue side of things work. So it's then telling us to try changing the 255 to 10 and see what happens to reduce the intensity. And then it's asking it, well, let's do that one first. So in the code here, we'll change that to 10. And then we'll run it again and see what happens. It's not quite as bright now, and you can definitely tell on the camera that it's blue, not green. So that works. Then it's telling us to try changing the value to 150, 0, 0, and see what happens. Now we know that it's GRB, not RGB, so I'm going to, you know, state the obvious probably. Well, in fact, it says it right there anyway, doesn't it? It should change the color to green at a medium intensity because 150 is slightly stronger than halfway of 255, isn't it? So let's have a play with that. So we delete that, change that back to 0, and change this to 150. Press play again. And now we have got a green light. See, because the glow off my hands now is now green. That's good. So we can press stop because we don't need that to be doing. The LED will carry on being on, of course, but so just for the fun of it, let's set that to 0 and press play or run the program just to turn the LED off, just so it's not sat there glowing the whole time. It'll probably tell us to mess around and with more code anyway. Activity number 2. Let's show you a few tricks to help you manage colors a little easier. Then we can move on to some really fun stuff. Your program currently uses GRB values to set a color, but when you're looking back and reviewing your code, it can be difficult to remember what color each set numbers relate to. A better way is to create a color variable with the colors names. Okay. Color variables. We've used variables already, so you might have already guessed what we're going to do here. We're going to add the variables for lots of different colors. We can then use these colors in our code to easily change the color by just using the color name, such as grb led.fill bracket red close bracket. All we're doing here is injecting the grb color code from a saved variable. We just need to create the variables before we use them. Okay. So again, I would always recommend you type these out instead of just cut and pasting, but I'm trying to get through these relatively quickly. Let's delete everything and paste and have a quick look at the code. So the grb LED, they're classing it as being the NeoPixel pin 2, which is what it is, isn't it? Because we've got it hooked up to pin 2 on the Pico. And in white we're classing as, because it's GRB, it's a whitish colour, because it doesn't actually have a proper white LED small one in there. So it's the combination of the colours. So if you didn't already know, combination of RGB or GRB in our case, you can get close to being white, because if you know enough stuff about rainbows and the spectrum, is the fact that that's what white light is actually split into. Lots of different colours. Rainbow, in fact. A spectrum we know it as. And for those that are into retro computers, I'm sure you're going, oh, there we go. So here's a little setup of all the different colours. Can you guess what that colour is going to be? And what unicorn is going to be? Ice blue is a bit of an easy one, but those last two might be interesting. And then by default, well, basically as an example, we're going to have it as green, and I bet what it will do is tell us to try. I mean, it doesn't say in the instructions anyway. The example below starts with green. So fine, let's press play on that then. So we're back to having a green LED. And try changing the color name. So okay, let's go for red. So what we can do is change that to red. Sorry, it's taking me a bit of time because I'm having to look over my shoulder to get to my keyboard, and I've messed that up there. There we go. Press play, and now we've got a red LED. Let's try pink. Now it says pink, but to me in person it looks a bit of like a dull purple, or a violet colour, which you can maybe see on the reflections. It's close to being pink, but it's got quite a purpley hue to it, which is kind of common. I'm sure maybe we can tweak that a little bit more if we played around with the numbers for pink. But let's just play around with this silly ones of unicorn. Run it again. Now this actually looks more like pink. So it's more soft. It's kind of a white pink. If you can maybe see off my hands, it's glowing more of a pinky colour, not the purpley colour. And let's be disgusting and put in bogey. How many people out there are doing a little giggle because they're typing bogey now? Oh no, now. There we go. It's kind of a lighter lemony green hue to it, which is what we all know. That's what bogeys look like, don't they, colour wise? Right. Let's put it back to a nicer colour though. And try for orange. See what that looks like. That's not so bad. That looks orangey. It does actually look orange. I realise on the video it might look more like an amber, but it looks orange in person. But let's do what we've done before. Because what I'm going to do here is this. I'm going to add this in as a little bit extra. Oh, I don't know why the bottom one's actually got all the spaces in place. 0,0. And now we can type off and run that instead. There we go, turned off. See, that's how easy it is. Let's move on to the next bit of colour cycling. We now have a bunch of colours we can use, but we're not really making most of it yet. We're now going to make the things a little more interesting by creating a loop that cycles our LED through each of our colours. we'll use the things you've already learnt so far: lists, a while loop, variables, and a range function. We simply start the while loop, then inside that we start a for loop. Remember the range function from day 2? Do you? It's been a few days now, isn't it? We've had a bit of a sleep since then. The for loop says for every colour in the list, do the following. The code inside that loop is simply filling the LED with each colour from the list, one after another. We use for colour in colours, but we may recall from day 2 that doesn't matter, but what we enter here, we could use for I in colours, or for C in colours, or even for teddy bear in colours. As I said before, variables are quite easily done. So copy the code. Okay, so we'll delete all of this then. Copy the code, stick it in. It should just look interesting. So obviously we've lost the off bit because I've cut and pasted over the top of it now, basically in a roundabout way. I've deleted and started again. So as before, all our fancy colours, but this time colours could be white, red, blah 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 blah. And then it's injecting the colours into there, and that's it. And then basically it's pausing for 0.1 of a second. So let's press play and see what happens. Got a little bit of a disco going on now, haven't we? So let's stop that then. There we go. And now we're going to try the GRB value range. Another way to play with colour is to tell your code to iterate over the RGB values. Each GBR value runs from 0 to 255, so we can use that in a for loop to make some cool effects. Fading is popular an option. You can make our colour codes run from 0 off to 255, the highest intensity, which is very short time delay to give the effect of fading in and out. Our code includes a loop for I in the range of 255, which is going to run from 0 to 255 each time it runs over the loop. Once it gets to the end of the range 255, the code will exit the for loop, and as this is all in the well true loop, it will start all over again. We then use I as one of the GRB color codes so that it uses that ever changing value when setting the GRB color. Give it a try. Okay, so let's go back up there again, delete all of that, copy the code, paste it in. Oh, didn't do it properly, did it? Let's try again. Sometimes cutting and pasting doesn't always work. Copied, there we go. Oh, is that all of it? Yeah, it is all of it. There we go. So now we're adding all the values in. Basically, keep count at 255 or green. Let's press, see what happens. So green, it keeps fading from 0 over 255 for green. And we could change that. I mean, just for the fun of it, let's do it. Let's change. Oh, change that to 0 and that to I. Does it for red instead? Because remember, it's GRB for us. Let's just put it back just in case it needs it for the other bit of code. Doubt it, just in case. There we go. Let's stop it for now. Reversey Percy. What if we wanted the LED to fade back out again rather than jumping from 255 straight back to 0? All we need to do is run another for loop after the first one, but tell it to work backwards through numbers. Remember the reverse function we used back in box 2? Yes. Yes, I do. We're using that again, and we'll also change the color to fade out. So it runs from green to red. Okay. And basically it's pointing out the code for that. So we didn't need to change this back at all. Code's copied, paste. So what's happening then? We know that it's pin 2, ranging from 255, so it's changing green, going all the way up, doing it each time at 0.005 of a second, but that's so quick we're not seeing that. So the increase of 1 is happening very quickly. And then we've got it reversed, so basically it's taking 1 away from that. But we're doing that for red, so it'll go from, well, being off, fade all the way up into the brightness of green it possibly can, and then come down in the red side of things. Start at the brightness of red and then come downward to being off, and then cycle through. So it'll start of dull to bright in green, bright in red, all the way down to off in red, and then go back up again. There we go. SecLND. Oh, here we go. Right, we're going to get a party going now, aren't we? Right, now that you know how to use the RGB LEDs, let's wire up the second one. Okay, first things first. It's not told you, and it should be in the instructions, but I'm going to tell you. Unplug the USB. Very important step. They should have told you, but they haven't. Let's get on with doing the second one then. So, yet again, we're finding it so that the longer leg number 2 is the longest one there. We're going across to the next block of things. So what does that give us? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the pin on the, remember, it should be there, the longest one on the left hand, close to the left hand side, but now we need to go up to the rightest leg, should go into pin 8. Not breaking the pins. Can be a bit fiddly. Try again. Oh, it's like trying to do one of those little music things with the music boxes. There we go. Probably the same height. Let's scroll down a little bit more and get some more wires going. So we've got another red wire. Yes, we do. So from, where are we? J11 on the top board. We need to go down to basically to the bottom row here. Have I done this right? Yep. There we go, we've got that one there. We got any more grey wires? No. Well, we have. Have we? No, not on there. Let's take a purple one. Doesn't really matter, but just to keep up with where the pins are going. Miss a hole. So now it's E. What did I say it was before? E11 before, so now we're on to E9. And we need to be sort of diagonally one across. So there, so miss a hole and then one across on the closer to the blue line. And we need a blue wire again. Have we got one? Is that blue? I think that's blue. Again, it doesn't really matter, but so the pin next to that one, so that's going to be E8 on the top board, and come all the way down to near the Pico, and it's going to be A8, I believe. Is it A8? No. 7, isn't it? A7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yes. A7, please ignore me for the A8, it's A7. See, this is why it's important that you double check what you're doing. It does say physical pin 7, but I was going by the diagram. I should have also learned to read, my point. Anyway, we're not going to daisy chain the LEDs. Right. No, we're not going to daisy chain the LEDs using the data in, data out legs, as we just have 2 of them, and these particular LEDs don't seem to play nice with that. Oh dear. Alright. We've got it all wired up now though. Light passing. Let's get our LED passing light to each other. We're using similar code to the last activity with a few tweaks and changes. First, we use both LEDs at the same time. We need to set up each LED separately with different GPIO pins, like you did in the bar graph displaying previously. So basically we're talking about that thing when we played around that with a couple of days ago. The only big difference is between the 4 loops we set for the first LED RGB color 000, which turns it off. Well, there's a typo because it's not RGB, is it? It's GRB, right? And then this helps give the impression the light has jumped to the other LED. Okay. Copy that. Let's get rid of all the old code. I'm going to say it again. It makes sense to actually type all this out, not just cutting and pasting and read what's happening. So GRB LED number 2 is set to pin 5, which is where we've plugged it in, isn't it? I hope so. And the GPIO things of things, I can only assume that's the correct one. So it's going to play around with the green, make that bright, and then turn that off, all of them off, and then do the next one, the next LED to be green. So it'll go from being off to being bright, and then the second one being done. But of course, the first thing we've got to do before we can even run the code is plug it back in again. So there we go, it's plugged back in again. Going now to press stop to make sure it's all talking to it again. Fingers crossed we've got all the wires done properly. So there's the first one. Oh, of course, I read the coding correctly, didn't I? It's reversed. So fading up and then fading down. Fading up, fading down. That's good. That's the bit of code working. So we can press stop on that. And that's day 6 complete. Good. So what did we learn? We learned lots of things today, didn't we? We got playing around. So just as a quick thing, let's change the reverse one back to being the red one. So now it should do this. Go green, then you got to stop it. Boom. Boom. That's kind of cool. And of course we can play around with other colours to our heart's content until tomorrow. In the meantime, if you're getting a bit stuck, come along to my Discord channel, which you'll find in the description down below. Check out the Patreon links as well. Don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and that notification bell for tomorrow's But as always, happy gaming.